At 2:17 a.m. on November 17th, a radio frequency that had been silent for years suddenly became active. It wasn't assigned. It didn't appear in any updated public registry, and yet it transmitted. It wasn't a radio station. It wasn't an emergency signal. It was a broadcast no one could identify, but multiple people heard it at the exact same time. And when they tried to trace it, there was nothing on the other end. At the time, radio bands were heavily monitored. Civil agencies, private operators, military systems. Signals like this do not appear by accident. That's why it stood out when different listeners in separate locations reported the same transmission. The timing varied slightly, the content did not. The first to notice it were experienced radio amateurs, people trained to hear the difference between interference and intention. Their notes all mentioned the same detail. The signal did not fluctuate like normal noise. It was stable, controlled, and it had deliberate pauses, as if someone was transmitting and waiting for a response. According to the original recordings, the broadcast had three distinct phases: a sustained low-frequency tone, a sequence of irregular modulated sounds, and finally, something resembling distortion, but rhythmic. There were no recognizable words. Still, several audio engineers noted the same thing. It did not sound random. It sounded constructed. A few days later, one of the recordings was processed. Nothing advanced, just slowed down and cleaned. What emerged was not noticeable in real time. Repeating patterns, intervals that partially matched known transmission codes, but with enough errors to rule out any standard test. It was as if something was imitating a technical language without fully understanding it. For a short time, some of the recordings circulated privately. Then, they stopped appearing. There were no official statements, no formal denials, just silence and broken links. In some archives, the date is still listed. The file itself is not. Reasonable explanations were proposed: satellite malfunction, atmospheric signal bounce, undeclared testing, all possible, none complete, because none of them explain why the signal appeared only once and never returned. One of the operators left a final note before disappearing from public records. It didn't feel like a transmission meant to be heard. It felt like a test. He sold his equipment weeks later and never transmitted again. Today, that frequency remains unused. Technically, anyone could claim it. No one does. Maybe out of superstition, maybe out of caution, or maybe because some believe responding would be a mistake. Some messages are not meant to be understood, only to confirm that someone is listening. In the days that followed, the incident briefly surfaced beyond technical circles. A few local news outlets mentioned an unidentified radio anomaly, describing it as a minor irregularity. The reports were short, vague, and quickly buried under other headlines. When questioned, official spokespersons offered familiar explanations: atmospheric interference, signal reflection, routine testing, nothing unusual. But no agency publicly claimed responsibility. No department confirmed ownership of the frequency, and no original data was released. The explanation stopped there. Several scientists and communications experts were later asked to comment. Most agreed on one point: the signal did not match any documented civilian broadcasts. Some acknowledged that certain elements resembled known transmission systems, but only partially, close enough to raise questions, too flawed to be standard testing. One researcher described it as technically coherent, but contextually impossible. Others dismissed the case entirely, citing the lack of surviving recordings and the absence of verifiable archives. Without physical evidence, the incident was labeled inconclusive. Privately, however, some experts expressed unease, not because the signal was complex, but because it was simple, structured, controlled, deliberate, and brief. As one former analyst reportedly noted, whatever it was, it didn't linger. It said what it needed to say. Within weeks, the incident faded from public discussion. No follow-up investigations were announced. No independent panels were formed. The frequency remained unassigned and untouched. To this day, there is no official explanation, no confirmed source, no definitive cause, only a short moment in time where something transmitted and left without waiting. Whether it was a technical error, an abandoned experiment, or something never meant to be acknowledged, remains unknown.